thought also is the last thing also this situation needs is an intervention from George Bush. And the situation is getting complex by the minute, and I think the longer it goes on, the more complex it will become. And already people in the United States are talking about a war, about a conflict. I just came back from the area, and I tell you, people in the area do not want a conflict. Of course, they do not agree what Iran has done. Nobody thinks that Iran is doing the smart thing. If it really wants to avoid war, it should not have taken these servicemen. Nevertheless, we all know that it was American actions that really have emboldened Iran in Iraq, in Lebanon, and all around the Middle East. There was a very important Arab summit which was extremely successful, and I know for a fact that most Arab countries that attended, specifically countries like Saudi Arabia,
this is the one in Riyadh in Saudi Arabia.
Yes, absolutely, have urged Iran to act very cautiously with this and to act with a lot of reason.
But
because Iran is not known to act with reason.
But do you have clarity as to who is responsible for what and how this has happened and what kind of political cover there is for this incident?
Have you ever seen clarity with Iran, really? No, the fact is, no, we haven't seen clarity. And the fact that they are with, you know, the Revolutionary Guards even adds more urgency to the situation. What I think needs to be done is make sure that people do not drum the, you know, war. Also, I think we need to talk to people, to countries like Saudi Arabia, perhaps like Syria, also like Turkey that's already mediating in this situation. I think much caution needs to be exercised here, but not to embolden Iran and to make sure that Iran feels that it is doing the wrong thing.
Do you, Annabel Crabb, see contradiction, awful confusion here? Do you see clarity coming from Iran at all?
No, of course not, and that's for one strong central reason. There isn't one negotiating body representing Iran in this circumstance. I mean, there is no evidence that those with whom the British government, for instance, are negotiating even know exactly where these hostages are. I think they are hostages. I disagree with Baria on that front. I can't see any further qualification that would be needed to give them that label. The fact that they're being held by the Republican Guard is a very bad sign indeed. This is almost like an independently operating military force within Iran.
All done at a holiday time as well,
That's
just to add to the confusion.
Yeah.
I think the holiday bit is a bit of really an excuse. They are there, they can talk to each other. We all have mobile phones. This is rubbish, I think, about this vacation and for the holiday. I'm sure everybody's on top of it. The problem is the lack of clarity. Who are we dealing with?
David, sorry, Tom.
Talking about clarity, there were very clear signals given out by the President, Ali Khamenei, 2 days before the hostage-taking, when he ushered in the news on holiday, New Year in Iran, where he said that he felt his country was aggrieved by the debates in the United Nations about sanctions because of the uranium production in Iran. He said, if the world community acts illegally against us, we can act illegally ourselves.
Yes,
so he put everyone on notice.
Yes, the
that something was afoot.
yeah.
His spiritual leader, and those were clear signals if he ever needed any. And I feel, and there's growing debate in London too, whether there may have not been a case of negligence on the part of the British.
Well, here we are the day before the Falkland Islands were invaded by the Argentinians 25 years ago. Are you saying there are almost parallels here after the so-called scrap metal workers arrived on South Georgia in the middle of March and somehow London didn't see the implications of this?
In many cases, of course, the two conflicts are apples and oranges, but there's one similarity here, which is a failure of the intelligence that was gathered. The British intelligence failed the government entirely by not taking seriously, A, the landing, and then secondly, Galtieri's, the president of the junta at the time, intentions. Everyone was saying, well, he wants to go to the UN before he invades Falklands, and Lord Carrington, Peter Carrington at the time, the foreign minister, believed him. Again now, I think there's a case of carelessness to allow two boats pretty much unprotected, 11 miles away from the home ship, cruiser, to board this suspected vessel. I think in this heightened period of tension, given Khatami's warnings, more care should have been taken.
So you think that the
I think it's Khamenei you're talking about, David. You
think
talk
it's-
about Khamenei, not Khatimi.
I beg your pardon.
unnecessary.
Yeah, Khamenei,
Yeah.
rather. Yeah.
I think it's unnecessary apologism to look for areas in which the British could have been negligent here. I think that the irrational behaviour is pretty much on one side.
Well, let's get an assessment from David. Politically, David, how do you think the British government has reacted, given they're obviously taken by surprise? There is even doubt now as to whether we've heard the full story from the British Navy when they gave the coordinates out on Wednesday, saying they're definitely 1.7 nautical miles inside Iraqi waters.
As I understand it, the only debate is a pedantic debate about whether or not there actually is a borderline between Iran and Iraq, actually. Nick, so I'm not totally certain that anybody's fingering the Navy and saying, oh, hold on, actually, you kind of fiddled with the figures
I'm
a
just
bit.
reflecting some voices here.
No, I know, and there's always going to be some, but there are some voices in Britain who are, quite frankly, just on the Iranian side.
But what about the British government, Margaret Beckett, and particularly the very emotional way, emotive at times, the Prime Minister has reacted to those images?
I think that's I hate to disagree with the presenter of the programme, but I think that's nonsense. I think actually he's been extremely low-key. I mean, given that there is actually a significant demand amongst sections of the British press and the British people for a much tougher attitude towards Iran, in fact, the decision was taken and has been to play this one pretty low level. In fact, what he's done is the absolute minimum level to stop the thing inflating. And becoming a kind of great big media frenzy here, whilst at the same time keeping the diplomacy open at the United Nations, through the European Union, and then obviously in the case of George Bush, it's a ratchet up of the rhetoric, which has something to do with the fact that the Iranian Prime Minister went crazy just the day before in one of his sort of kind of mad speeches. And the difficulty here is the one that everybody's pointing out, which is we don't know which part of Iran we're dealing with, but we do know that a clear message has to go out from the international community that you don't lift hostages, you don't lift other people's service personnel, you don't then spirit them away to an unknown location, force them to write letters against their will and parade them on television. It's against all the international rules and so on, and Iran plays by none of the international rules. We've all got a problem here. There's one thing I just say to reassure Baria. One of the things that is not going to arise out of this, unless the Iranians do something absolutely crazy like shoot the hostages and so on, is a military intervention. That is not going to happen.
This is not the feeling coming from the area. And let me tell you, what is worrying me here is also a misunderstanding. Everybody I talk to in the area are afraid of a war that is going to happen by mistake, by misunderstanding between the West, basically by the Americans and the Brits and the Arabs. Not the Arabs as such, really, Iran, which is not Arabs at all. The situation now is, how do you deal with this from a cultural point of view? If Iran is seen to be insulted, Iran is selling this to its people like hotcake. It's telling them we are being insulted by the West. The West is telling its people, meaning especially here and the media, that we have been insulted by Iran, which is both true in many ways. Iran is saying, I am parading these people simply to show you that they are being treated much better than people that have been treated in Abu Ghraib, for example, while here it is seen as an insult. I totally agree. I don't think they should be paraded at all.
But in this day of information warfare and propaganda, the fact that it's clearly manipulated imagery, that those who have apparently said that they were trespassing in Iranian waters,
yes.
No one really takes that seriously. How does that go down in the area? It's the impact being one of them being put up to say this, and it's not what they really believe.
No, I think people in the area know for a fact that this is a gimmick by the Iranians. The people in the area...
Why do it then?
Absolutely. They are playing for their own propaganda, and they are trying to reach the Islamic world, the Arab world. That's why the first pictures appeared on Arab TV, not on Iranian TV of the service lady that was there. What is important here is for the Brits to be extremely careful to play this in a very rational way, diplomatic way, so that we do not seem to be playing with the hoax.
How could they be more careful? I mean, I agree with David. I mean, the British government, I think, has consistently erred on the side of tolerance throughout this entire debacle. I mean, what you're saying, if it's true, means that diplomacy has no future at all in this particular situation.
What about patience, though? What about patience?
No, actually, today in the morning we heard Khatimi, who is the ex-president of Iran, who is seen to be a very moderate, like Rafsanjani, moderate between parentheses, of course. He's calling for the hoax to keep quiet and to indeed solve this diplomatically. So yes, I think it should be solved
That should
diplomatically.
give us a sense of security that lasts all of 5 seconds. I mean, the whole point is that these sands are shifting.